In Reflect, you can define tests to run on demand via a schedule or automatically in every deployment through our test suites feature. In this example, I've created a couple tests and I want to run them in a test suite. So to get started with that, I'm going to click on Suites on the top, and you'll see that by default, no suites have been created. To get started with creating a suite, you just define a name. So normally you would call this something like staging tests to say that these are the tests that I want to run every time we deploy to staging. But in my example here, I'll just call this a first suite. Once I've created a suite, you'll see that there are some summary stats at the top. Those are blank right now, but they'll be updated as you run the suite going forward. And you also have in the middle section a workflow, which is the default workflow for every new suite. The default workflow is to run a set of tests that you specify, and if there's a failure, send you a single email with the results of those failures. But we can modify this. So just to kind of get started though, let's first specify which tests we want to run at this particular part of the suite. So we're going to click Run Tests and then click Select Tests. Here you'll see the tests that I've already created. If I had tests organized in folders, you could filter by folders over here or search by the name of the test. But you can specify however many tests you want. Let's say I want to run all 3 of them. We'll select them, and now that is in my Run Test block here. You can reorder tests. So if you wanted to run the tests in sequential order, but not run them in parallel, but in a particular order here, you can do that through drag and drop action on the right-hand side. Running them in parallel is just simply toggling this on. And we can give this a custom action name like run initial smoke tests, kind of anticipating that I'm going to be adding additional tests in the future. So that's the simple workflow, but we can make this more complex according to if you have those requirements. So for example, let's say we had a set of initial smoke tests that we wanted to run, and only if those succeeded do we want to run the full suite. So to do that, we'd have this set up here and then click the plus button over here on the decision where it says all passed and click plus and add another run test block. And we would choose here the additional tests that we're adding. And so this is a nice use case where if you wanted to reserve some of your execution time so that if there is a bad deployment, it doesn't run all of your test suite, it just runs those initial tests and then fails fast. Another example would be maybe I want to hit a webhook on my side to set up some test data before my tests run. You can add a call API block at the beginning before even running your tests, and we support calling any publicly accessible API through this method. A final use case might be on the failure side. Maybe I want to invoke PagerDuty to create an incident if there's a failure. We could add a plus at the bottom of the decision section here and call the API. And here you would just be calling the PagerDuty API. So as I mentioned, you can run this on demand through the Run Test Suite button here. You can set up a schedule, so we could click Change and set up a schedule, maybe run it daily at 12 p.m. or maybe Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. But let's just kind of run this on demand to see the results immediately. So I'm going to click Run Tests here. And you can see that we have overrides. So you can set up an override for your test suite so that by default, it has an override to run in staging instead of in the environment you recorded that in. That would be a hostname override. You could also set up things like an auth token that's passed in dynamically when you run the tests. This here just gives you the opportunity to set an override on this specific run, but you can also kind of save that as part of the test so you don't have to do it every time. But we have no overrides that we need to set up here, so we'll click Run 3 tests. And now you'll see that those tests are running automatically. And so as the tests run, this view will give you updated information about the status of your test suite execution. And so here you can see that there's no failures detected yet, and no tests have been completed. As tests are completed, they'll show up on the bottom. And if failures are detected, you'll see kind of a summary of those failures here with links to go to the failing tests. We have one more test that's about to run here, and now the test suite execution has completed. So we see that there's no failures detected, all the tests have passed, and we followed the path where everything is passed and it ended at this point here. So that's a summary of test suites. You can run the tests on demand, in parallel, or via CI using this workflow and set up custom workflows that fit your unique requirements. Thanks for watching.